you don't know exactly where it is, or if you have to dump 30 million things out to find it, like Walmart, if I got to dump the whole thing out to find that tourniquet, I'm in trouble, right? Right here on the front, tourniquet's laid out for you. For those of you that have never dealt with what is classified as a CAT tourniquet or a combat application tourniquet, it's one of these guys. What's nice is you get to open them up and they get bigger. And even bigger, right? This will stop the bleeding and save your life. So whenever you're dealing with that moment, when you're in that panic, this is what we're going to use. So I want to teach you two things real quick before we go over this. I need you to learn the difference between arterial and venous bleeding. Okay? Venous bleeding can be just that little drip or an ooze. How many of you ever cut your head? And you got your face looks like Rocky after a boxing match. It's scary, right? You have a lot of capillaries. That's venous. It's just oozing. I'm not worried about that. Okay? Now, if I can read your pulse from across the room with that spray, right? We've all seen it in the movies, they over-dramatize it, but it's that spray. I can tell what your heart rate is from across the room. That's what we're worried about. Okay? So, with that in mind, you know the difference here, right? Now, second factor, slow down. Your adrenaline is going to dump. You are going to lose all your fine motor skills. You're going to go from, hey, I can teach this class in algebra, to now you're like, does the square peg go in the square hole or the round hole? And I wish I was joking, but your brain just shuts down and goes to survival mode. Most people panic in this moment. That panic will kill you. Okay? If you look back to all these survival situations you can read about, people that are freezing to death, what are they found doing? Stripping their clothes off in the snow. They panic. Their brain says, hey, we're not cold, we're hot. Right? Hypothermia is, we'll cover that in a little bit, but hypothermia is wild on the brain. So slow down, take a breath, and focus. Okay? So with tourniquets are designed for the limbs, your arms and legs only. Even though there's some days I'd really like to put one around Lance's neck and see if I can pop his head off like a pimple. I'm sure Miss Kim has thought the same thing once or twice. And I'm sure they thought the same about me, and that's fine. That's what being friends is all about. But these are designed for your limbs. When you go to use one of these, you'll notice some of them have these nice little pull tabs with your finger right there. Some of them, there's no pull tab, right? You take this thing, goes up on that limb as high as you can get it. Now you notice I've got a shoulder joint right here. We're gonna be just below that joint because if I try and tourniquet up here, it's gonna pop every time, right? From here, we're gonna get that thing as tight as we can get it. And if you have never had to put one of these on in a life-threatening situation, it's gonna hurt. And your brain is gonna say, stop, that hurts, don't do it. Guess what? Keep going. And you are going to take this is called a windlass, and you're gonna begin to crank, and crank, and crank. And you know when you stop? When you stop bleeding. And you don't stop before then, okay? I'm gonna take that off before my hand goes numb. We will get into how to use these a little more effectively after everybody is done. We have some trainers over here where you can get a little hands-on with how to use them, okay? So this is for your extremities. So when you get one of these, we can say pre-stage. That doesn't just mean you get one of these little fancy holders for it. Pre-staging is you size it for the largest part of your body. Now, before we get that can of worms open and somebody gets put in the doghouse, that is your thigh, okay? Remember, extremities. So you get right into your thigh. For the gentlemen in the room and any ladies that are gonna help them in, if you go to put a tourniquet on, please move the equipment out of the way. That is not a situation you wanna find yourself in. I can give you examples of that happening, and it is not fun for anybody involved, okay? So equipment out of the way, right there, same thing, as high as you can get on that limb. The reason we go as high as possible is this thing called traumatic withdrawal. How many of you have ever worked on a farm, dealt with tractors and hydraulic equipment? You ever snapped the hydraulic line? Does it go back together? You got to buy a new one, right? Your body is a hydraulic system. Whenever you have that artery get cinched and it separates, that vein or that artery will then suck up. So what we used to get taught was, okay, my wound is below the elbow, I go right here, right? Well, the problem is if that artery got sucked up here, all I'm doing is cutting off the blood flow from the rest of the arm, and it's all pulling here. So we go as high up on that limb as possible. So if it's anywhere in here, we're gonna stop the bleeding. So what if it's not on my arms or my legs? What if it's here on my belly? That's a problem, right? So we have a solution for that too. We have a couple of options for that actually. You have wonderful rolled gauze or compressed gauze. This is in a Z fold. So that right there is 4.5 inches by just over 4 yards of gauze. I wish I could pack things that tight. I'd take one bag on vacation. I will get into depth a little bit more on that, and I can show you some techniques with that, but that is where you start packing wounds. And you literally just take a ball of it and you put it in, and your hands become sewing machines and just push, 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 and you are filling that cavity. So what we're doing is we're creating internal pressure. The tourniquet applies external pressure to shut everything down. When you're wound packing, you're applying internal pressure. Pressure is your friend, okay? Well, what if it's not in my belly? What if it's in my chest, right? Well, we can't pack the chest because there's a lot of stuff in there that needs to move, like your heart and your lungs. So we need to seal that off. We have these wonderful chest seals, okay? You have vented and not vented. We'll go over that later on. These are designed to be occlusive. They seal that area to allow your body to do what it needs to do. The vented seals, they allow some of the fluids to escape, so we avoid other complications from that. But this seals it up. And guess what? If there's a hole going in, there's a hole going out most likely. There's 2 of them. One in the front, one in the back. Matter of fact, if you look, they even tell you entry and exit wound. Okay? Well, I'm packing these wounds and I just can't get them to quit bleeding. What do? It's where we have hemostatic agents. Quick clot gauze is a wonderful thing. It's expensive. You're looking about $30 for that little piece right there. Okay? I don't make the prices, but whoever does, they are a very rich person. These are designed that whenever they come in contact with that blood, they then swell. So you just magnified it. This allows your body to start clotting quicker to where it can kind of start the healing process for you. Hemostatic agents are great. I must highly advise, do not use the granulated powders, okay? You'll see a lot of Celox granules or Stops Bleed over in Walmart, and it feels just like kitty litter, basically. The problem is we get in a rush, and you've got your hand holding that pressure on there, and what do we do when we can't open a package? We grab it and rip it off, right? That's very fine powder. Not all of us wear glasses in here, but I have a few friends that are blind from that powder. Okay, so no. That and these little particles, they tend to travel, and now we have to track blood clots somewhere, and let's just avoid that. If you're on a certain skill level, you get to reach these things called tension pneumothorax. It's where one lung actually collapses. It offsets your entire breathing systems. You're going to be in trouble. Well, from certain training levels up, and I believe right now it's still paramedic and higher, we have these things we like to call chest darts. It's a decompression needle. I wish I had one of these that was already open to show you, but it's a little scary whenever you think about it, because I'm going to shove this needle into your chest. And what it's going to do is it's going to allow that pressure to equalize so you can breathe on your own, okay? And I'm sure Dr. Jerry will correct me on some of these things because I like to oversimplify. So we've got chest seals, we've got tourniquets, we know how to apply basic pressure because that's human instinct, right? You cut yourself, what's the first thing we naturally do? Oh, right? You add pressure. That's all basic common knowledge. Everybody understands those. I mean, you see, her kit looks very much like mine, except for 2 things. I give her a pair of shears. I always carry a knife on me Matter of fact, I believe right now I have at least 4 on me. She doesn't. So a pair of shears, because you cannot always see where the bleeding is coming from. So being able to cut those clothes out of the way, right? Remove the blockage to where I can deal with the wound. The other thing that she has here that I don't keep on my kit or on here because they're elsewhere. Anybody want to take a guess? Gloves. Okay. I'm a real big fan of catchphrases because it sticks with people. And I want this one to stick with you. If it is wet, sticky, and not yours, don't touch it. Don't put it in your mouth. I have to say that a lot as a parent, but I never thought I'd say it as a paramedic or a combat medic because the guys in the Army I dealt with, their first thing is, hey, what is that? I don't know. What is it? You guys try it. Congratulations, you all now have a bloodborne pathogen. Awesome. So if it's wet, sticky, and not yours, don't touch it. Whenever you go into any medical class nowadays, they use these, the phrase, and I can't even think of the word anymore, BSI, right? Protect yourself. Scene security. Is it safe for me to go in there? Do I have my personal protective equipment on?
Universal precautions.
Yes. So one of the other things I do, and I don't remember where I put it, CPR mask. Matter of fact, I can tell you where mine is. Keep one on my keys. It's a micro shield. Every set of keys I own has one of these on them. This micro shield is because I don't know you. You don't know me. If you're unconscious, there's this thing called implied consent. I'm going to do CPR on you because I'm trained and certified to do it. We've never met, so I'm pretty sure we haven't had that conversation before we kiss, right? So I want to put a barrier in between us because your mouths are wet and sticky, and guess what? Your mouth is not my mouth. I'm not going to touch it. We put a barrier between them, right? We've all talked to our kids about safe relations, right? Same thing. Put a fluid barrier in. Because otherwise, one of us might have something that we don't know about, or if I'm doing CPR on you and I've got a cut, you might have caught something for me. So let's not become friends for the rest of our lives like that, right? But even with hers, there's a glove pouch right here where she can pull her gloves out. Okay? So protect yourself while trying to help others. Now, some of you might be thinking, this all sounds really cool, why do I need something like a trauma kit? Why do I need something like this? Car accidents are rare. I got first aid for that. Most fender benders are so low speed, especially like here in town. Nobody's doing 100 miles through downtown Madison, right? Well, probably because FHP likes to chase them really good around here. I've seen some of those crash reports. Whenever he asked earlier how many of you concealed carry, there's quite a few hands that went up in this room. God forbid you ever have to use your firearm, but there's a pretty good chance that if you've got to squeeze that trigger, there might be rounds coming the other way, right? Well, if you're not hit, you might be. Or let's say you got your kids, your grandkids. You need to be able to use that to keep them alive. We call it an IFAK because it is an individual first aid kit. Whenever we go out shooting on the range, my kit gets used on me. So let's say my gun has an oopsie. Lance is trained enough and heard enough of my classes. I'm sure Miss Kim over there has heard enough of my classes she could teach it. She knows how to grab everything in this and use it on me. So that if something happens after I'm in the ambulance and going to the hospital and Lance gets hurt, well then Jerry can step in and use his kit on him. So if you have one of these built for you, well, how many of you ride in your vehicle alone everywhere, right? You're married, your spouse might be in the car. They need to have one of their own too. Well, if you got kids, you got passengers. Maybe have an extra one tucked back in the back seat. These can get pricey. You can go online right now, go on Amazon, you type in trauma IFAK, anywhere from $80 to $800. You can price it out yourself with half the stuff I just told you with quality pieces. There's less than $100 in this. Less than $100 will keep me, my wife, or either of my daughters safe to where we can go on one more day. That less than $100 that's in my hands right now weighs less than 3 pounds is what I use to guarantee that I get to see my family one more day. Any day I'm at work, We're running chainsaws, we're running heavy equipment. I have to drive 90 from Live Oak all the way to Baker County and then head north to Florida too. I am in the literal middle of nowhere. My first day on my yard, they said if you have a medical emergency, it will take 35 minutes for the helicopter to get here. Is there anything we need to know about before they get here? That's a little scary, right? To know your closest ambulance is a helicopter. I keep one of these with me everywhere I go because I'd rather not rely on that helicopter being there on time. Or worried about, is it going to be raining where he's taking off so he can't come to me? This is an insurance policy. Just like the firearm I carry every day, I hope to God I never have to use it. But I'd rather have it and not need it than need it and not have it. So, any questions?